In this video, I want to share with you the 9 things that have really stood out to me after building and testing various Riese Müller Load full suspension cargo bikes over the years. So let's head back to the workshop because it's starting to rain and share with you those 9 things I think you really should know. If you're new here, I'm Arlie, aka Bike Shop Girl. Today, I want to share the 9 things I think are important to know about the Riese Müller Load family of front-loading cargo bikes. This isn't a full review of the Load4 75 that I have in for review, but it's more like a palate cleanser to get ready for it. So let's grab a good cup of coffee and jump in. The first important thing to understand is actually the company of Riese Müller. They are a premium high-tech e-bike brand based in Germany. They often are delivering technology features on their bikes a season or 2 before anyone else. And one reason they are able to achieve this is because they build their bikes to order in their factory in Germany. Either a consumer or a bike shop handpicks various configuration options, and then in 8 to 12 weeks, the bike is shipped completely assembled to the bike shop. In comparison, most e-bike brands are building bikes in mass production with what a product designer hopes is the right spec for that region. The bikes are then partially disassembled to be put in the smallest box possible and then reassembled by a local bike shop. Or for some direct-to-consumer brands, the customer themselves will be building it. Now, there are definitely pros and cons to this, but in a mass-produced world, Riese Müller are certainly pushing the envelope of electric bikes and the bike shops they work with. Switching gears to the Load, the first thing anyone will tell you about a Riese Müller Load is it is very plush, yet responsive, due to the full suspension design. So you're not just going to have a front suspension fork, but you have a shock here in the middle of the bike, which allows the rear end of the bike to pivot and provide some suspension where it flexes in the middle. Riese Müller calls this control technology. Not only is it comfortable for the rider and the passengers or cargo, but it also gives your bike better traction, as the suspension keeps your wheels from skipping over rough terrain. And for many years, this was the only full suspension cargo bike on the market. But recently, Riese Müller introduced the Paxter 270 with control tech, which we will talk about in a completely different video. There are some cons to this suspension, which I'll cover in a bit. The Load, like most 2-wheel front loaders, have the bulk cargo between your wheels as low as possible, compared to a rear loading bike where the cargo is actually sitting on top of your rear wheel. The cargo on this one is between your wheels and super low. What is unique about the Load, besides the suspension, is the aluminum bike frame right here that wraps around the box. This makes the bike feel very stiff and fast when the front is loaded down. It also means you're committed to the size of the box. The Load comes in 2 different lengths, and the difference is all in this front box length. The Load 60 is 60 by 52 centimeters, and the Load 75 is 75 by 54 centimeters. You're primarily gaining length and less than an inch of width in the box, which is also your shoulder room for passengers. Due to how the seats are so close to the floor of the box, passenger legs don't have many places to go. They do have an option for a footwell, but I found that not too many feet can fit in that space. So for the Load 60, I found that it can fit 2 small kids or 1 medium-sized kid or dog. I've carried a medium-sized adult, and their legs were pretty squished in the front. The Load 75 can fit all 3 of my kids, who are 9, 6, and 1.5, but it's tight. My 9-year-old can fit okay on her own, and the 6 and 1.5-year-olds are just fine together as long as they're facing each other. It certainly doesn't have the volume the Urban Arrow does, but the Urban Arrow is also not for everyone. While we're talking about carrying things, weight capacity is something important I want to touch upon. The max gross vehicle weight of the entire bike, including the bike, rider, and cargo, is 200 kilos or 440 pounds. This bike requires you to split hairs a bit. The max weight of this front load platform is 154 pounds or 70 kilos. If you choose to purchase the additional rear rack, I find that the weight capacity is fairly low at 44 pounds or 20 kilos. The rear rack weight has always disappointed me, as it is simply not designed to carry a child seat. In contrast, the Urban Arrow family promotes the rear rack to carry another child, and I personally would love to get my little one out of the box and put them in the back. Now, the last weight limit you should know is the max rider weight, which is 242 pounds. This is pretty standard on all Riese Müller cargo bikes, and lower than others like the Urban Arrow family at 275 pounds, or the Turn GSD at 265 pounds. The next thing I want to talk about is the bike fit and handling, but I'm going to grab my coffee first. All right, so I've been testing out this Load4 75 for the past few weeks. I do want to disclaim that I've spent a lot of time on the original Load back in 2018. That's now called the Load 60. And I also rode the Load 75 when I owned a cargo bike shop. These days, my daily ride is an Urban Arrow, but part of that is primarily due to having 3 kids and their ages and sizes. So when we talk about rider fit, this is a one-size-fits-most cargo bike, which is advertised to fit someone 4'9" to 6'5". You achieve this by a slack seat tube. This tube right here. So as you raise your saddle, it goes back and up pretty aggressively, giving you more reach or length to the handlebar. The handle post can also adjust up and down and pivots back and forth to adjust the reach or the length of the bike. I found rotating it forward can cause it to catch my rain cover or hit my taller kids' helmets. So the step through is 19.29 inches. And this is where one of the cons of this full suspension comes in. The bike has a high top tube to make room for that rear shock, and it's also where they put that battery. If you have tight hips, I would suggest relying on the kickstand when you're getting on and off the bike, and only rolling off the kickstand when you're standing squarely over the bike with one leg on each side. I'm 5'10" with long 34-inch inseam. I did crave for the handle post to be a bit taller than it is, and I personally would put a handlebar with a bit more sweep to rotate me back on my sit bones and give me a more ergonomic fit on my wrist. For those of you on the taller side, you do want to be comfortable leaning over to your handlebars. Now, the handling of this bike is sporty. It carves well. Some may call it twitchy if you aren't used to a fast handling bike. My 2 concerns I have about the handling are both based on the suspension. The suspension can compress into corners, driving your pedals down, and you might strike the pedals when you typically wouldn't on other bikes. And when fully loaded down, the front suspension can cause a diving feeling in tight turns, almost like your tire is underinflated. In both of those cases, I wish there was a basic change you can make to the suspension based on how much weight you were carrying. So if it's just me, I can adjust the suspension to be a little bit more plush, but when I'm carrying all 3 of my kids, I could make an adjustment so the ride's a little bit stiffer. Let's move on to talk about the e-bike systems that are driving these bikes. So you now have 2 different Bosch systems that you can pick from. The Load 60 and 75 are using Bosch's eBike System 2 that comes with the cargo line motor and 85 Newton meters of torque with a 500 watt-hour battery. The Load 4 60 or 75 comes with the new Bosch eBike System 3 smart system. This also makes available a whole bunch of tech options, like a larger 725 watt-hour battery, ABS brakes, GPS alarm and tracking, and more. The Load 4 also has a stiffer front fork with larger 34mm stanchions. I'm going to save my deep opinions on Bosch's eBike System 2 verse 3 for another video, but in summary, I'm glad they're using both, and I hope they don't stop. Riese Müller are innovators, and I hope they continue to drive the high end, but at the same time, pushing down that technology to help the middle market afford these great bikes. All right, so if all of that sounds great to you, let's talk about test riding. You're going to want to find a shop that ideally has multiple types of cargo bikes, front and rear loading cargo bikes for you to try. If you don't have a local bike shop that has this, you could even try posting on the Riese Müller or Cargo Bike Republic group to find some locals for you to test ride. So you want to try it first without any weight, and then test ride with more and more weight depending on what you're going to be carrying long term. I used to keep sandbags in my bike shop to show folks what it would be like riding with 1, 2, or 3 kids before they actually test rode with their own kids if they didn't feel comfortable. If you fall in love with the Load, there are 2 ways to buy a Riese Müller. The first way is to hope that a semi-local dealer has something you may be interested in on their floor ready to be bought. This is by far the fastest option as it's already built in the country. Many dealers also sell off their demos at the end of the season as they have to buy new ones. So if you're willing to wait, you may get a deal. The second way to buy your dream Riese Müller is to configure it on their website and order it through your local dealer. So those were the 9 things I think you should know about the Riese Müller Load cargo bikes. What do you think so far? They are such tech-packed cargo bikes and a joy to ride if the capacity fits your needs. Do me a favor and leave a comment or question below so I know you made it this far. And unfortunately, YouTube also likes to see that. But I would love to see what you want to be watching in future videos. You can find some helpful videos here to continue on your cargo bike journey. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay well, stay good, and remember to bike more and worry less.